What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Dragonflight video. It is reset day. I wanted to do a video actually from last week. So this is a Shadow Priest build that I tried to do that did not incorporate Mind Sear. This is the big sort of thing I wanted to try and take out of my build if possible. It's not that Mind Sear is bad per se. It's just that there's a lot of other means of accomplishing AoE damage now for Shadow Priest, and it includes things like, of course, Shadow Crush and the updated Psychic Link, which really cleaves almost every other single target spell that you have, right? Mind Blast, Mind Flame, Mind Spike, Mind Games, Void Bolt, Void Torrent. So the question is, can we do a build that accomplishes enough AoE damage without taking Mind Sear? And I wanted to try this here in this dungeon verse. So this is the talents that I ran. I actually made a really big mistake, and I'm gonna make another. I'm going to do another video on this. But essentially, Mental Decay doesn't really matter in this build because I didn't use Mind Flay very much, and I should have. But I just wanted to try a build. A lot of times people do this build with Mind Flay Insanity. That's the build that they kind of run, and they don't usually take Mindbender. I wanted to incorporate Mindbender because I really enjoy the playstyle, and I also wanted to incorporate the new changes for Void Torrent over here, but I ended up taking Mental Decay, which doesn't actually matter in the build that I ran at all. So I could have freed up 1 point there and put it into Mind Devourer or Idol of Usarge, and I'm going to do another build on this where I'm making sure that I run something like Usarge would probably be the best one, actually, because you're summoning Mindbender all the time. So you'll be getting a bunch of extra damage, which is super cool. So this is kind of the build. This is what it would look like here if I was running it properly. This is kind of just like a test run for this build. Can we run a build that doesn't include Mind Sear, but also doesn't include Mind Flay Insanity? That's kind of what I was going for here. And I think it worked out okay. My damage wasn't amazing by the end of the dungeon, but just remember, I'm only 404 item level. I'm not like 415 yet, which is kind of where you would want people to be at this point in the expansion. And we did do a plus 19 Shadowmoon Burial Ground. I'm going to get to that right now. Okay, so we're into the dungeon here, and this is just the first pull. So the basic idea of this build is that your only spender is Devouring Plague, and you're going to use that every single time you need to spend Insanity. And then you're kind of funneling damage into that target because you're going to be getting the bonus to your Mastery, which obviously says that if you're Devouring Plague, for each of your Devouring Plague, Vampiric Touch, and Shadow Word Pain on the target, you get increased damage. We sat here and looked at this guy for a very long time. That was a big mistake. So if you have all three of your dots up, you're doing roughly 10% more damage per dot on my character right now. I don't have a lot of Mastery. So that means that all the damage that's being funneled into that one target is being increased by 30%. And then through Psychic Link, you're cleaving a lot of that damage to all the other nearby enemies. You can see I'm doing 100k easy peasy on this small little pack here. So this build, I think, really benefits small packs of mobs. So something like 4 to 5 targets at the most would be ideal. Did we kill this pack here? Oh, yeah, we did. So the reason it's really good, I don't know, I messed up my messed up there pretty hard. I thought we cleared. I don't know why we hadn't cleared, but the basic point of the build is to find packs that are like 4 or 5 in size, and then be cleaving all your damage onto those targets through Psychic Link, and then you're sort of dropping Mind Sear as an additional button you need to press, so you're always able to just easily focus in on Devouring Plague, Devouring Plague, Devouring Plague. If you have maybe 2 or less targets, then you can easily Devouring Plague both, and then you're kind of double dipping on your damage there. So your filler, of course, in this build is still going to be Mind Spike, because it's buffing Mind Blast. It's giving it that chance to crit, which is really nice. And I think that the build's pretty fun. The reason that it might work is because a lot of the dungeons in the pool right now are all essentially low AoE mob dungeons. So the only exceptions to this are really Algathar Academy and probably Knockhood Offensive, which can have massive packs of mobs. You can have up to 10 mobs in some of those packs if you're trying really hard. So most of the other dungeons in the pool, particularly things like Temple of the Jade Serpent, you know, they only have 5 mobs, or something like Shadowmoon Burial Ground, they have 4 to 5 mobs that you're killing at a time. There are exceptions, like in Shadowmoon Battleground, where you're fighting one big spider with like 10 other little spiders. But in reality there, the damage that you're putting into those spiders is really less important. And this is another really important part of this build. Its ability to funnel into priority targets is really good. And that's a really good thing that you need in a lot of dungeons. In particular, you know, this dungeon here, later on, you get those spiders that cast a necrotic, I forget what this, necrotic something, but it can, like, wipe your entire team if you let it go off. So being able to just nuke down a single enemy very quickly while kind of cleaving that damage to other enemies is a really useful skill, I think, for DPS, in particular this week, which now is, of course, last week. Today is Tuesday reset. So this was still tyrannical and bolstering, which I think was another great reason to take a build that can funnel damage into one target. Because, again, if you're just cleaving damage with Mind Sear, sometimes you're going to end up killing a lot of those lesser mobs, which isn't really helpful because it's going to bolster the big mob that you're really trying to focus down. And I think that can be a serious issue for you. So it's nice to, I think, have this kind of flexibility within the Shadow Priest talent tree. I just really love that there is this flexibility, period, that you can run a build that is kind of completely different. So here's a big AoE pack. We're into our Mindbender window. This is still where we get a lot of our AoE damage from. You can press Mindbender with Dark Ascension, and then, of course, get your... I get Feared here, which is super nice. Would have done a lot of damage there. You can get your Mindbender proccing its AoE damage. We still get up to 150k AoE damage, which was pretty good. I got Feared for like a full 4 seconds, which was very unfortunate. But yeah, it can still do fine on these packs of mobs. This was about 6 mobs. This is one of the biggest packs, I think, that you'll find in the dungeon. And again, you're just doing Shadow Crash here. So even here, I don't have my cooldowns. I'm Shadow Crashing into... I Mass Dispel there to get rid of the shields on those guys. And then I'm waiting for Void Torrent to come back. We're not doing a lot of damage right now, of course. But if I have my Mindbender window up, every 1 minute, sorry, you're getting that Mindbender window up, and it's doing a lot of good damage, which is great. You don't have the Mind Sear, for sure. But you do get this really good, again, priority target focus. Devouring Plague just does so much damage to a single enemy, which is great. That's kind of what you're looking for. Here's the second boss. Nothing too crazy to write home about here. I want to look at our AoE damage, actually. Even though this was tyrannical, really nothing's changed on our single target damage. Oh, here's the next pack here. So we're going to start with a... I don't even have my cooldowns ready, which is unfortunate. I don't have Mindbender or Dark Ascension for this pack. So we're just kind of going to go naked here through this pack. I did get knocked up a few times during my Void Torrent. Very sad. So I'm just getting used to this build, obviously. But you're trying to get Devouring Plagues out either on multiple targets or likely just on one target. And then again, like I said, funnel the AoE damage through that one target into a bunch of other targets, okay? That's the best way to do it. We're almost doing 100k without our cooldowns. We get to 100k here without our cooldowns, which I'm actually very happy about. And again, you can move around a lot, and Devouring Plague can be cast while moving, which is amazing. That's really the best part about it. You don't have to stand still and channel, which both Mind Flay Insanity and Mind Sear would be forcing you to do. So I kind of like that flexibility of being able to move around. The other cool thing you can do is because you're not taking Mind Sear, you have an additional talent choice to take in the top of the tree. I took Mental Fortitude here, which gives you shields based on your Vampiric Touch, which is very cool. A little defensive layer, but you could take the buff to Dispersion if you felt like you really needed it, or you could take the 4-second stun as well. Psychic, not Psychic Scream, I forget what it's called actually. Psychic Horror, I think? Tell me what that's called. Here's an example of AoE damage. You know, we're not doing as much as the Demon Hunter. Just remember, the Demon Hunter has 30,000 more health than us, so he has much more item level. If I had 10 more item level, I think I could actually get kind of close to him. But we're doing respectable damage here on a big AoE pack. You pop Dark Ascension, you pop Mindbender, and it's doing great splash damage, and then you're doing extra splash damage through Psychic Link every time you cast those spells, and you want to try and make sure you've got a Devouring Plague on the one enemy that you're cleaving off of. I didn't do a very good damage of that here. I really just didn't. So that was a mistake of mine. I needed to do a better job of just having my 3 dots on the one enemy and then prioritizing that enemy, nuking it down, and splashing the damage around. I didn't do the best job of that, but Here's the double monstrous corpse spider. This is a great example of when you want priority damage. Necrotic burst is a very nasty ability that you need to get rid of. And having the ability to just say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to do AoE damage. I'm going to funnel all my damage into this one target and then kind of do 60% of that to the other enemies. You can see the one spider died much quicker than the other spider. I think that's because of the build that we were running, that we were able to focus down all of our damage into the one target. Here's another example. I'm really focusing the carrion worm mostly, but that's cleaving onto the other bats, which do need to die. But realistically, what needs to die first is the carrion worm. We want him to die right away. You don't want to have him up and getting bolstered by the bats. I'm not even sure if the bats do bolster, but this would be a prime example of bats potentially bolstering. You want to be really careful about that. I do pop my Dark Ascension Mindbender near the end of this pull, so it's a little bit desynced from where I would probably want it to be, because now I just thought I need to get rid of it now because I want it up for the boss, right? So we're going to kill this worm here. I don't have my cooldowns up, but they come up just in time for the beginning of the boss. And there we go. We're into our cooldowns now. It also buffs the upfront damage, of course, of Devouring Plague. I get pulled into this. I hate Volcanic on this fight. It's so troll. But Dark Ascension buffs the upfront damage of your Devouring Plague, because your upfront damage of Devouring Plague is a hit. It's a hit of damage, not a dot of damage. It also puts a dot on the enemy, but casting more Devouring Plagues inside a Dark Ascension window is pretty good, actually, for the Devouring Plague. Makes the first part of Devouring Plague much better. Our poor warrior and Blood DK were just yelling at the Evoker here to cast his frigging Lust, and he wouldn't do it. He kept not doing it over and over and over again. They're like, Lust, Drac, Lust, come on, dude. And he wouldn't do it, so that was pretty funny. So my damage was pretty bad here. I'm not actually sure what the average damage is on this boss fight. I feel like it's definitely much higher than what I was pulling off here. But we were kind of competing here with the Demon Hunter, which, again, he has, like, probably 10 more item level on us, which was kind of cool. Here's, again, last pack that needs priority. Actually, second last pack that needs priority damage. It took 4 minutes and 22 seconds to kill. Oh, God. So here we go. We're funneling into this one target here. All my damage is going into this one guy, and it's cleaving. We're doing 130k, which is pretty good. Actually, fairly respectable for this build and for my item level. Here's the last pack that would require priority damage. You don't want to just AoE these guys down. Like, pressing... You probably wouldn't press Mind Sear here anyway, but it's just another reason to think about the way that you want to deal damage. It's important to know, what does your class bring? What does your spec bring in terms of its ability to do funnel damage? Like, Enhancement Shaman will be another great class that can do really good funnel damage. Unfortunately, everybody else was maybe hitting the other Void Spawn, and so we end up killing them at a very similar rate, which is too bad. We really... One of them should be dead by now. And I think I actually switched targets over to the other one, so that's kind of on me. That's really troll, actually. I should have just been beating up the one enemy on its own, and I wasn't doing that. So, anyway, on a 21 or a 22 on a fortified week, that might have mattered much more. Thankfully, this is a 19, which is still high, but it's a tyrannical week, and it didn't really matter there. Here's the final boss. Nothing too crazy to write home about here. Again, we're really more focused on how our AoE damage looked with the build that doesn't have Mind Sear. That's all I was really worried about here. Somehow I got clipped by the... this is really troll. Look at this here. It says that I get clipped. Look at that. That clips me somehow with the purple stuff. There's no way I got clipped there. I'm so angry about that. Anyway, we're back up and at it. It's not a big deal. We end up doing... This boss fight takes forever, by the way. I'm kind of excited to get back to fortified weeks this week right now. This boss does eventually die, I promise you, and we do end up two-chesting it, I think, which was the fear of the Blood DK. Did we two-chest this? What does it say here? We do two-chest this. They were really worried about that, but anyway, it ended up being fine. We do about 60k overall, which was actually okay. Let me get back over here to the dungeon to this. It was actually okay. The 60k overall wasn't too bad. I could have done better. Again, my item level's not super high. And I messed up the build, I think, multiple times. But I wanted to see if this could be like a proof of concept. Like, does this thing actually just work? Does it work? And I think the answer is yes. I think that on tyrannical weeks, it probably works a little bit better. And on certain dungeons, it'll work better. On a fortified week where the mobs are going to last a lot longer, and I do think you're going to probably want Mind Sear back. But I don't know. I need to hear from you guys in the comments down below. What do you think about this kind of build? Again, here's the build right here. I would definitely change Mental Decay, and I would use Idol of Ysarge. I did not have that. I had Mental Decay, so I was totally trolling. I forgot to change it. I looked at my talents pretty hard, and then I just forgot to change this one. You either do that, or you could take Mind Flay Insanity instead, or take Death Speaker, or take a second point in Mind Devourer, you know, or take Idol of Ysarge. It's really, there's actually a lot of options here, and I'm a little frustrated now that I didn't change it. Now, Mind Flay Insanity was probably just the play, but let me know what you guys would do in the comments down below. You get rid of Mental Decay. Where do you put that extra point? Do you put it in Ysarge? Do you put it in Insanity? Death Speaker? Do you go in a Mind Devourer? Maybe you go Insidious Ire, because you're casting so many Devouring Plagues. I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. I'm going to be refining this build, trying it out in various dungeons to see, can we get away with not taking Mind Sear? I'll even try it in a Fortify week. We'll just have to see how it goes. So let me know what you think in those comments down below. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one.